Okay, so in this video we're just taking a look at just some different principles of kind of getting similar shapes in your objects. So for here, what we're doing is we're just creating a little support piece of wood kind of in here, and we're going to be looking at actually building them out of your geometry versus just actually punching them in. So having another shape that isn't really welded to this object, it's just going through. And yeah, I'm just going to show you real quick because it probably doesn't make as much sense to describe it. So what I want to do is I'm creating this, right click, letting it go to the middle because I want it to be the same here. Control R, doing that same thing, right click. And I'm only doing the one side here for now, just because I want to just illustrate what it is we're doing. I grab the pair of them, Control B to bevel, and I want to scroll mouse to get rid of that. I just need the one piece, and that's good. So for this here, I want to create, so I'm creating the geometry I need to actually make this happen. So I've got that. I want it to be inset a little bit. So I'm actually hitting I to inset it. And I really think that's good enough. And so what I want to do is connect from here to here. Myriad of different ways. I could actually extrude this one out, weld it into here. But what I'm going to do is just hit X, get rid of these faces, go into edge mode, holding down Alt, and then Alt Shift to grab these ones. So now I've got two different rings selected. Right click, and I want to bridge edge loops, and then boom, that gives us that kind of object. Now, on this side, I'm going to show you how the other way of doing it would kind of work. So this one here actually has the geometry, it's all filled in, it's one complete shape. This one here is going to be me using the existing geometry, Alt Z, so I can look through and actually grab all of these. Doing a Shift D to duplicate this, right click to let it drop back into where we want it. I want to rotate it 90 degrees, so just R. I want it to go along the X axis, so I'm hitting X and then 90. And then I'm just going to go into side view here and using G and locking it into the Y axis. So it's about here, and get it centered up, and then also scaling it along the Y so it maintains its shape, it's just getting shorter. Now, when you're doing this type of modeling, the important part is just that it punches in. It doesn't necessarily have to go this far, and actually I'm probably going to adjust it. So I'm going into vertex mode, grabbing these, G, Y, pulling them back to here. Oops, not grabbing that much. G and Y, pulling it into here. The only thing it needs to do is punch through. The last thing you want to do is kind of make sure, like, to even bother to make it right on the edge, because there's a good chance you'll kind of miss it. And if that happens, you're going to be able to actually see into your geometry. And so, yeah, safety first, people, just punch it through a little bit. Okay. So now I'm going to Alt Z so we're not seeing through it anymore. And so let's take it, oh, actually, and I want to go in here, polygon mode. So since this thing isn't welded, if I hit L to grab an entire shape, then it will be able to grab that. This one here, if I do an L, since it's all welded, it's going to grab the whole object. So that's kind of handy as well. And so notice this garbage right here. So whenever you see this kind of hash mark stuff like this, this is evil incarnate. This is Blender trying to tell you that these two polygon faces are occupying the exact same space. So it's not 100% sure which one to render, so it kind of tries to render the pair of them. But this artifact, get used to seeing it, and when you see it, you need to address it. For this here, that's actually going to go away because I want to do the same thing I've got here, where it's actually inset along the top and the bottom. So I'm just doing a scale and I'm locking it into the x-axis and then just bringing it in a little bit. And there we go. Okay. So as far as straight up geometry is concerned, these two are pretty much identical. Actually, as far as geometry goes, in the low poly, they are. Now, where it starts to make a difference is when you start doing things to this. So if I add an operator, add a modifier to this, and I do a subdivision surface, and I go tuck, 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 go up a little bit. When it's all part of the same thing, it allows it to do this nice transition. If it's not, then it'll make it nicely round, but where these two combine is going to be, again, with your ridiculously razor sharp, infinitely perfect lines. But at the same time, too, keep in mind that this may be something that you're looking to do. This is a weird plastic chair. It's got metal pipes that are punching in and doing this. Fine. If this thing's one whole piece of blobby plastic, then you're probably going to have to go this type of direction. Excuse me. So the next place that this comes into play, and this is kind of more important for how we are using it, and this is going to be how this looks when we actually unwrap and bake this type of information. And the example that I'm going to use is off of another chair. So this one here, the front chair, has all of it as a single poly. So there was an extra line created here, beveled, and then this piece was kind of taken out. This one here has the punched in type look. So if we zoom in and take a look at what this looks like. So for this one, this is the one that actually has a kind of natural edge to it. We can kind of see that it still has a bit of sharpness to it. And for the most part, we're not really seeing any advantage in doing it this way. And that has a lot to do with the nature of the material, because in this case here, we've got a nice busted up wood. This plank is going to be, it's not going to be growing out of this other plank. It's actually been cut and it's inset, so it looks fine. If we go to the other one, where we actually have it punched in, first thing you're going to notice is we are looking at the infinitely razor sharp line. But keep in mind, this is going to be, you know, inside your scene. It's going to be an asset. There's probably 8 or 10 of these things. Not a lot of people are going to zoom right the hell into this and eyeball it. And at the end of the day, too, this is another piece of wood that's kind of plugged into this one. So the nuts and bolts of it, it's looking good enough. And especially too, keeping in mind, in order to create this and pull it out like we did in this one here, that's a whole bunch of extra polygons. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, the extra polygons across here, and then in here as well. So to do it that way comes at a small polygon cost as well. So keep that in mind. So the wood, not really that much of a deal breaker. So if we go in and we just make these things a metal, and then I go grab this one, and also turn it onto metal and hide our wood. So if we go in and we take a look at this, this is where we're seeing where the kind of rubber hits the road, or however you want to put it. This looks way more like it's actually welded together. This steel is all the same. You can kind of see that little where it sort of blends into that when we get the nice little edge. Same on the front. Same type of deal. So the illusion is a lot better for that. And then we go back to the one where we didn't do that, and we have a very, very distinct punch in. And again, depending on where you're going with this, you don't want this chair to be looking like it's been welded together. That is one single piece, that this metal has been kind of inset into this one. Then this is not only perfectly fine, it's probably the better way to do it. But just to wrap your brain around the fact that you've got two different ways of doing this, and it is going to give you two different very distinct results. And the whole time too, also keep in mind where and why you're doing this on your model. Something like here, where it's very low to the ground, it's also going to be an object that's probably going to be viewed at from about this distance. It's not a deal at all. If, however, this is going to be a giant steel structure that you're going to be wandering under and looking up, and this thing's, so you may want to go this and actually have the extra polygons just so you've got this transition, as opposed to, say, your player's looking up and seeing this razor edge. Because 3D Engine, this is a polygon that intersects another polygon, so there is no blurring of that edge. It will be razor sharp, and that's just how it's going to be. All right, well, that's pretty much that. Yeah, all right, have a good one.